Are we really going to get a Bitcoin ETF denial, or is an approval still underway? We have James Seyffart, the ETF analyst at Bloomberg, joining us to break down the latest in Bitcoin spot ETF. We're going to talk about how much potential money is going to flow in, what exactly are authorized participants, and what is their role. We have Goldman Sachs that just applied to be an AP for BlackRock. We're also going to talk about a new poll and survey that came out. We have Dan from the Chart Guys joining us to break down the charts. What are some buy the dip opportunities that you should be looking at? We got that and much, much more. Let's get into it.
Hola! It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto. If it's your first time checking us out, we're the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency channel. We take that old, boring, and stale ETF news and repackage that thing up in a fun and sexy, it will pass kind of way.
Give me a banger show today.
Bro, there's so much volatility today, man. I have never been so excited to see
Never?
the price of Bitcoin drop.
Let me ask you a question, Robin.
I mean, like, honestly, because I know what's happening. If not today, by the end of the week.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Bitcoin's going to go under 45K again?
I did not expect the FUD.
No.
Jim Cramer.
There you go. There is your out right there.
I don't know.
There is your out.
How the writing was on the wall. We should have put all the short.
Why didn't we
possible.
go 100x short, man?
God.
What is wrong with us? Scared money, Robin.
Dude,
I gotta tell you, man.
This man single-handedly
Think the market.
He did it.
This guy, man. This guy.
It is so absurd to me that it is so. How does the man do it?
Got a
Jim
gift.
Cramer effect.
He's
Yeah.
got a gift.
Look at this. When he was on, it was 45.6, which was, I think, the high of the day. And now we're sitting at 42.3.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jim. Thanks for the buying the dip opportunity, my friend. We appreciate it. Do you expect a big bounce up? So
Man.
obviously news came out today from Matrix Port. They think we're going to get a denial. Everyone started freaking out. We saw mass liquidations. As you can see here, $652 million was liquidated over the last 12 hours. Half a billion in 12 hours.
How many longs? do you think?
88% longs.
No, I'm just saying, how many longs do you think was people just feeding into this narrative? Hey, SEC is having some key meetings. There's rumors of the ETF getting approved today. This was prior to today, so I think a lot of people were looking at this day like, hey, I'm putting in my long positions, and wow. It's almost comical, right? That it had to be manipulated. Don't you think that it had to be manipulated?
I don't know. I just know that there's still people leverage trading. And of course, if your liquidation point gets wicked, you get the lick. Liquidated. We have Rocco back. Rocco, man, we missed you. How was liquidation, my friend?
Rocco.
I'm back,
There we
guys.
go. There we go.
You weren't here. He forgot how to use the microphone. Rocco, you can't take a long time off. You forget how to use the microphone.
Yes, I did.
We missed you, man. Welcome back, Rocco.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Rocco was chilling at the beach.
Yeah.
Right
Before the
that,
tsunami.
I was going to say right before that big tsunami came. Tsunamis come and go. But you know what doesn't? Is crypto adoption and sentiment reports. This is from...
about that.
Oh, yes, and our sponsor as well. Our sponsors, some come and go, but Cams has been with us for the longest time. We love Cams Blue Wire Technology. If you own a business, you'll love them too. They'll help you maximize your networking, IT, and your cybersecurity. Visit bluewiretech.com or click the link in the description of this video. Now, what I was saying was the new crypto adoption and sentiment report from security.org, they did a poll of, I think, 1,500 Americans. So listen, look at this. Key findings here, Robin. Crypto awareness and ownership rates have increased to record levels. 40% of American adults now own crypto, which is up from 30% last year. This could be as many as 93 million people. Among current crypto owners, around 63% hope to retain more crypto over the next year. Their most desired are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and Cardano. You did say 2024, Robin, was year of the Doge. I think you're wrong, but hey, who knows? 21% of non-owners, so people that do not own crypto, said the anticipated Bitcoin ETF makes them more likely to invest. This means as many as 29 million more Americans could join the market soon. What are your thoughts on this, Robin? And what's interesting to me is a 10% increase year over year of Americans who hold crypto.
It's going to be a very interesting election. And I know I talked about this earlier in the week, I think on Monday, but think about this. Election coming up, the largest campaign donors are going to be, or some of the largest campaign donors. We look at the last presidential election. Number 2 is FTX. Will we see something similar? I think so. But I think instead of it coming from the exchanges, I think some of these large institutional companies that are running these ETFs are going to be the ones that are going to manipulate the presidential election, or at least suggest that, hey, let's make some more money in crypto. Let's ease up the regulations. Let's make the United States a little bit more crypto friendly, because traditional finance is going to make a ton of money. And if that's the case, then yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a wild ride, man. And then Trump, he's not on a couple of state ballots, and all of the other I don't want to say all the other Republicans, but there are a handful of other Republican nominees that are running for election that have taken a hardline stance on being pro crypto, at least pro Bitcoin. And I think it's going to be a talking point. So there you go.
You know, this is an interesting point, and not because of political reasons, but Flatsmack said the election gets canceled. Will it be bullish or bearish? I think anything that people see the government as, whoa, they're overstepping, or what the hell they're doing, they're printing too much money, the economy's going down, inflation, this and that. We've seen over the last year and a half, Bitcoin has reacted positively. That's at least my take. What are your thoughts, real quick, Robin, and then we'll give some love to the chat.
Bitcoins react positively to,
let's say something crazy happens, election gets canceled, or I don't know, something crazy on the government level, and you don't have to speculate on that.
Election get canceled.
But listen, hold on.
Impossible.
Focus more on a negative narrative from our politicians, our government, something that
it's like if California falls off of the U.S. continental.
Hey, man, you never know.
You know, because there's been a lot of earthquakes.
All I know is these politicians.
It's possible that California will
governments
just fall off of the map and then become an island on its own. And if that happens, it's going to be good for crypto as well.
No, it's going to be good for Nevada because we get beachside property. Robin, give some love to the chat.
You asked me a question. I didn't get to answer.
But you made fun of the question, so obviously you don't answer. Go ahead. Rocco, you
missed me,
take
right?
another vacation, Rocco. I don't think that was long enough. It was nice not hearing that stupid crybaby.
I knew it.
Okay, yes. Dramatic events here in the U.S. Okay, dramatic events globally. We saw with Ukraine, geopolitical wars. When there's uncertainty, people like to take their own custody, take their own monetary policy into their own hands. And that's what we've seen time and time again. So if for some reason the election got canceled, or California falls off the map, I'm pretty sure it'll be bullish for crypto. Now, a little love to the chat. If you are new here, say hello so we can jump into hola back at you. We do have Sir Gabe, Esteban, A, BC, Alv, Andrea, and Jason Ferrari, and also Unts Ya. So to all of you.
Yeah.
Hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto. Also, smash the like, 50 likes.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing up to over 100. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We have Dan from the Chart Guys joining us, as he does every Wednesday. Let's bring him in. Dan, how you doing, my brother?
Howdy. Good. How are you?
Excellent, man. How was your New Year?
It was the best night of my life.
I somehow don't believe you.
No, it was good. It was great. We're still alive, so that's a positive.
That is definitely always a positive, Dan. What a day to have you on, man. We love your TA. We love your analysis. And we'd love for you to give us some good news, please, for the love of God. We are down 5.8% on the 24-hour. I'm kidding, of course. If you believe in crypto, this is just another buying opportunity as far as I'm concerned. Bitcoin, 42,495. Dan, I did share earlier in the stream, liquidations, 650 million in the last 12 hours. A lot of longs got liquidated. What's the setup look like on the Bitcoin chart? And should we, because my feeling is it was all based around this whole article from Matrix Port. ETF's going to get denied, right? I think once you bring James on from Bloomberg, I think a lot of that's going to get quelled because nothing's really changed from the SEC side. And so I think we're just going to get a bounce right back up. What does the charts and the technicals say?
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where, again, when you're in a state of euphoria, everybody gets overconfident. They increase leverage longs to unsafe levels, and then it's just a tiny little push to trigger a cascade of liquidations and stop losses. The good news for the bulls is we held 40,000, which again, every time you hit that level, just everybody's watching 40,000. Everybody knows that that's the most important level. But this actually just happened 10 minutes before I came on here. A headline in the cannabis sector came out, and it's non-news, it's known information, but it was enough keywords to trigger the algos in the automated trading system to shoot the price up really quick. And so it's the same thing with the ETF. If you get a headline that has enough keywords that these automated trading systems pick up on, they will act regardless of whether it's the right thing or not. So just to show you on a chart.
That is interesting, Dan. Just sorry to interrupt you, but we hear, and I've talked about this as well, high frequency trading and bots that trade, but I didn't understand the depths it goes to. So what you're saying is these algorithms, these machines that are set up to put in buy and sell orders, they track keywords in news articles and then put in trades based off that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and even like when the FOMC comes out, you've got automated trading systems that will read and scan for certain headlines or keywords and act based on that. And that's why you had, I forget the book that it's called, but the something boys, the Flash Boys or something. And they they spent millions of dollars putting in a wire across the ocean to be able to get data a split second before everybody else, so that these algos can act on the headlines a split second first. So The chart I got up right now, just a quick example. Again, we know the DEA is reviewing to reschedule cannabis. And so some tweet comes out and says exactly that statement, which we've known for months. We shoot up and halt. And then the market says, oh, wait, nothing's new. We know this. So it's literally headlines just triggering the algos. And it's essentially, I'm assuming, again, I'm not, I don't have in-depth insider information. I don't have any algos that triggered here, but I'm assuming that that's the most likely scenario of what took place with this most recent dump and the ETF doubt that was circling around.
Interesting. There are some traders who are like, hey, I don't pay attention at all to the news. I just look at the charts. In this scenario, I would assume it would probably benefit people to pay attention to the news, although some kind of come out of left field. Now, Dan, you've been trading for a very long time. From your experience, when something like this happens, is that a good buying opportunity, knowing that, hey, these bots got triggered, we don't even know if this is real, but the keywords got picked up on and the price tanked, people got liquidated. Now that the equilibrium is, so to say, set, we should see a move to the upside. Is that kind of a strategy you're implementing or have implemented before?
Yeah, definitely. And, I'm the same way. I don't really care much about the headlines, but you do want to pay attention because in this instance, if you got this support right nearby, you're much more confident buying that flush and saying, wait a second, this headline isn't that serious. And in the example I just gave with cannabis, I was shorting that headline because I know that's no new information. And I know that the algos got tricked. The algos may be faster than me. The AI and the automated systems, they may be able to act faster than me, but my human brain can look at the headline and do a little bit more critical thinking. And so in these most recent instances, it can give you a little bit more confidence buying the dip off of 40,000. If you look out and say, okay, well, that's the reason we're dumping. All right, I know we're, have leverage longs triggering here, but this isn't the doom and gloom that the price action would suggest is happening.
Awesome. And then, Dan, we do have, I want to take a look at Ethereum if we can. And that is holding steady above $2,200, still down 6.8% on the 24-hour, down 5.5% over the last 7 days. ETH has been a slow mover, but we've gone over on the show how Q1 historically has been the best quarter for ETH. What is it? What is the Ethereum chart telling you? And then is it making any headway on the ETH BTC chart?
So it's essentially the same thing in the sense that, we tested the low, same as Bitcoin. We broke it just barely, but, I consider that essentially a double bottom. We did fail the recent resistance, which was a bit of a red flag. So we confirmed the weekly bull flag with no follow through, and then we failed that resistance. And so essentially what's happening is, we're just forming a sideways channel where we've got a clear resistance zone, 24 to 24.50, and a clear support zone, 21 to 21.20, and we're just going to keep ping-ponging around between those levels until we get conviction one way or the other. As far as ETH BTC is concerned, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done here. The weekly time frame, we had a shift on the daily, and for me, I was just watching this downtrend resistance line and saying, when we get over this level, that tells us something is shifting. And so we did, and now we're back testing it. But I go to the weekly chart, and this red line here is the weekly EMA 12. And my simple statement is, if weekly EMA 12 is resistance, as it has been for over 6 months or just about 6 months, if it's resistance, nothing is changing bigger picture. So that has to become support. We made some moves on the daily chart. Okay, that's a great first step. Now then moves need to be made on the longer term time frame, and the weekly chart has to prove something to us. And essentially, it would have to be an inverse head and shoulders if that's going to happen.
Hey, Dan, we've had a surge in the ICP community, Internet Computer Protocol, and this crypto seems to have bucked the trend of the rest of the altcoin markets. Just a couple months ago, it was around $3, and even 1 month ago, it was at $5. So 3 to 5x in the last 30 to 60 days, and it hasn't had the traditional cycle, because when it came out, the market makers kind of dropped the ball, way overpriced on the token on an initial release, and it just fell flat on its face. And now we're starting to see some prices we haven't seen since its initial launch. And what is if you were looking at ICP, if you were a fan of this, what are you looking for? Because I'm kind of confused when I look at this chart. I don't know if it's a good time to get in or step back.
Again, it's another one of those where the weekly time frame has been going straight up for 300% plus. So if I'm looking for a swing entry, I've got to be patient for the weekly consolidation. It's just, if I want good risk reward, I need to see that longer term consolidation to give me a new support level. That's if I'm patient. And whenever I ask, a trading question, or I'm asked a trading question by someone, my question back is always, are you looking to be aggressive or conservative? Because there's so many different factors that determine that answer. What's your age? What's your debt like? Is this your first cycle? Do you have a smaller account and you're trying to smash it? All those things come into play. If you're patient, you're waiting for the weekly chart. If you're more aggressive, you've heard me say in the past, if daily EMA 12 is support and that keeps holding, there are no red flags. And so any altcoin that is still holding that daily EMA 12 is standing out as a lead bull. And so, this bearish reaction here to Bitcoin, we flushed down, and that lower wick shows bulls fairly aggressively buying. I'm assuming that we got right down close to hourly oversold there. So again, patience waiting for weekly consolidation. If you're trying to be more aggressive, just like our sucker punch discussion, there's your sucker punch low now. That's the must hold level. So any entry that I'm making in the short term has to be playing off of that. So, if we tighten up on the hourly.
What would be the weekly consolidation level entry level you would be looking at if you're playing conservative?
I love the weekly EMA 12 test, but these names have been running so significantly that, that's not even close nearby. So again, it's combining shorter term oversold. If you give me first 4 hour oversold conditions, that means, if we were going to drop enough to get to 4 hour oversold, that means we're likely trading down around, 11 or whatever. And that weekly consolidation is shaping up. So I would say first 4 hour oversold conditions would be a spot that I would look to begin attempting to establish, building a bit of a position.
Okay.
Dan, and then I do want to ask you about one more coin. So Solana has had a big 2023. I know a few people, a few of my friends who are looking for an entry into Solana, but they just don't want to enter an overheated market. Does it look like we're about to enter some consolidation here for Solana? And I see that spinning top there. So I know that usually signifies some indecision in the markets. But what are some levels of support you're looking at? Are we there now?
I mean, this is a perfect follow-up to what we just discussed. We have weekly consolidation underway, and we hit 4-hour oversold. That long lower wick was getting to first 4-hour oversold conditions that we've seen in over a month. So, if I'm sitting there saying I want to be a patient soul bull looking for an entry on weekly consolidation, that was your flush to establish at least a partial position. And, this is one where we had a higher low every single week. That's what we call the stair step pattern. As soon as you break 97.14, that triggers the short. We follow through for a quick 15% to the downside, obviously very quick. But that's exactly what a bull is looking for weekly consolidation, that 4-hour oversold flush.
Awesome. And then some of the biggest gainers, we have Arbitrum, Say Network is up 11.7%, Lido, MakerDAO. Are there any setups that you got your eye on, whether it's traditional markets that are maybe trade in line with crypto or any crypto token or maybe even Bitcoin that you're eyeing to enter into a trade, whether a long or a short?
I've been loving trading these miners with extreme volatility. There was a nice gap down open on them for buying today with that Bitcoin flush. I'm then going to be looking as the most likely scenario. When I look at this chart, what's the most likely scenario? It's an equilibrium. It's a tightening range because we had significant volatility up, significant volatility down. It's the most common pattern in markets. I'm going to scout a daily low or high. If it's a big enough bounce, I'm then going to scout a higher low and watch for that tightening range. And that's going to be the scaffolding of what my decisions are. And being a day trader, I'm open to trading it in both directions. So today was the long side. Eventually, I'm scouting short, whether it's tomorrow or Friday, for the daily low or high. And then we patiently wait for the tightening range to break for the next trade after that. So I am going to be watching these miners because this volatility is going to stick around for a bit, but anticipating that we start tightening up from here into next week.
Awesome. Dan, we truly love your insight. We love the way you explain things. Thank you so much again for joining us. Guys, if you want more of Dan and the Chart Guys, they have a whole team of TA experts on their channel. We did pin their YouTube channel in the comments section. Dan, any parting words for our community?
Protect yourself. If you are feeling euphoria, generally speaking, just take a little bit of profit. Even if it's 5% of your position, whatever. Rewire your brain. As traders, that's what we have to do. We know that generally when we're feeling euphoria, that's when greed kicks in. When we're feeling fear, we sell at the bottom. We rewire our brain. And so train yourself. If I'm feeling this euphoric feeling because of my gains, I should take a little bit of profit. And if you rewire your brain that way, it will benefit you in the long run, I promise.
Very well said, Dan. There's a saying, right? No one went broke taking profits, right?
Absolutely.
Dan, thank you again, my brother. We look forward to bringing you on again, and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you next time.
Happy New Year, guys. See ya.
Happy New Year, brother.
Later. I need to rewire my brain.
Needs more than a little rewiring. You know what I'm saying?
Let's rewire the chat here. Let's get over 100 likes. We got 80 likes going on and over 220 viewers. Get over the 50% threshold. Also, if you are new here, say hello so we can drop an hola back at you. I know we got some new people, so say what's up. We got Juan Estevaz, Leroy, Mario Canavan, Duke Juan, and Sebastian. To all of you, hola! Welcome.
I want to share a poll we did on Tweeters. Was it
Stripper
more?
poll?
What's up?
Stripper poll?
No stripper.
It's Vegas, man.
Regular poll. Who has a more diehard community? So this had 4,700 votes. So big shout out to the ICP, Cardano, and the Hedera community. By the way, Hedera video drops today.
Ooh.
If you are a member, you get early access. So if you want early access and you're not a member and you want to support the channel, there's ways to do that. Should be a little join button on your phone. But it was ICP in the lead for a while, and then the numbers started coming in, and then Cardano got up to 61.8%. Some bickering back and forth in the comment section. Care to throw any input or comment on this, Robin?
I think it's spot on. Well,
In what way?
okay, you know what? the Cardano taking the lead is, I thought, spot on, right? I'm not surprised. Very community driven. There's a lot of passionate Cardano people out here. Although I expected, I would have expected
Sarah?
H-bar community, the H-barbarians, to come up and be a little bit more present here, right? I feel like they have a little bit more. Because I remember our first video we did with H-bar, we weren't quite as bullish as we are now. And man, that community
Got a lot of heat.
Man, that community was ready to burn down our studio.
They didn't even know we had a studio. They're ready to burn it down. They're like, "Where's XRP? Where's XRP?" Maybe I'll do one with XRP.
Yeah. Before we get too far into the ETF news, I want to get the viewers' perspective here. So there is two sides of this ETF narrative. Right? You have one, well, it's going to get denied, and all signs point to getting denied per, what was it, the Matrix report?
That's such BS.
Yeah, it seems like it. Now, put a 1 in the chat if you think that Gary Gensler will put another scratch on the denials on the ETFs this week, or, I mean, yeah, there's only 1 week left, so in the next 7 days. Will the ETF get denied? Put a 1 in the chat. Or if you think that this thing will pass and the FUD is in full swing, put a 2 in the chat. I want to know where we lie at. Let us know. Yeah, 1 won't pass. 2 will pass by the end of the week.
Please don't sound stupid and put a 1. It's gonna pass.
Stop influencing the decision of the viewer.
You know, today, Robin's a special day. It is Bitcoin's birthday. The day Bitcoin, the network, went live, and we have a couple videos. This one is from Galaxy and Invesco, who have a spot ETF application, and it's a pretty cool video. So let's listen. Let's watch it.
15 years ago, a revolution was born, not in the streets, but in the silent depths of the digital world. A defiant spark, a whisper of change in the aftermath of the financial crises. They called it Bitcoin, and the very first block was created 15 years ago today. Bitcoin embodies empowerment in the digital age. Its fixed and predictable supply makes it a potentially robust store of value, free from the control of any individual or government. The white paper displayed above me laid the foundation for this novel technology, offering a solution for people anywhere in the world to securely send and receive digital money using the internet. Like any 15-year-old, Bitcoin is still a teenager. People are still trying to understand its place in the world. But one thing is certain. We are committed to helping you understand and explore the transformative potential of Bitcoin. Happy birthday, Bitcoin.
Happy birthday, BTC. And then we have this one from Hashdex as well.
Happy birthday, Bitcoin. As the world's first cryptocurrency turns 15 today, it enters a new year that may prove to be the most consequential since its inception. The macro landscape, the forthcoming halving, and spot ETFs in the US are just some of the factors that could push Bitcoin to a new all-time high and accelerate global adoption. To understand Bitcoin's evolution, we often talk to our clients about how its growth is following a path similar to that of the internet. So a fair question today might be, where was the internet 15 years after its creation? Well, if the internet was officially born on January 1st, 1983 with the TCP/IP standard, then on its 15th birthday in 1998, Google didn't exist, dial-up connections were the norm, and there were only a few 100 million users. The internet's transformation over the decade that followed, including the widespread adoption of broadband, the development of Web 2 platforms like Facebook and YouTube, and the number of users reaching 1 billion, is a useful analogy for investors to understand the impact that Bitcoin may have in the coming years. This is part of the reason why we refer to Bitcoin as a generational investment. Like the internet, Bitcoin is a once-in-a-generation innovation that is providing investment opportunity for those that recognize how it is disrupting traditional finance and improving access to financial services across the globe. So as we celebrate Bitcoin today, it's important to remember that disruptive innovation does not appear overnight.
Is that fair comparing it to the internet? What are your thoughts on this video? It's pretty cool.
I mean, it makes sense. You have a disruptive technology because before the internet, it was, handwritten mail, text messages were basically, you had to hit the letter, to type the letter S, you had to hit the 7 or 8 button like 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's very comparable, and makes sense. It's good. Happy birthday, Bitcoin, man. We need to get like
HBD BTC.
But that's another ETF provider having a Bitcoin commercial, right?
Did you say ETF?
Yeah.
It would be so cool on the day that rumors fly of an ETF being denied that we have someone who literally his job is to analyze and follow ETFs. And well, guess what we do here on Sin City Crypto? And that is our friend James Seyffart from Bloomberg. James, how you doing, man?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me back.
Hey, man, the pleasure is all ours. I can't imagine the emails, texts, and DMs you're getting to join shows, and you were gracious enough to come on our show today. Thank you so much. Man, James, let's just kick it right off the bat, man. So we had this today, this piece of news. Bitcoin ETF may get rejected and trigger 20% price drop. This was from Matrix Port. And of course, a lot of people are saying, hey, this is why Bitcoin decided to tank. We had this as well. This was back on January 1st. BlackRock sources say SEC will likely take until the end of the week to approve an ETF. What is the latest you're hearing? This Matrix Port report of a rejection. Are you and your colleagues still at 90%? And are you still looking at that January 8th to 10th window?
Yeah, I mean, nothing has changed on our end. So I looked at this report and I saw it and I was like, oh, maybe they know now. But a lot of the things they were pointing to were stuff that we were writing about and talking about back in August and July, like the first time I was on with you guys. So yeah, I mean, all their concerns are kind of been asked and answered. So I'm not putting much faith into this report at all. They got some facts wrong here and there. So yeah, no, we're still looking January 8th, January 10th, and nothing has changed on our front. There's a lot of other like mainstream media reporters now claiming that there's all these new breaking news things and about the SEC meeting with different issuers, but like this has been going on for months. It's just a continuation of something that's been happening for months. And yeah, nothing is changing on our end. Our calls are not like, well, obviously we have and we would change if circumstances and facts change, but they haven't.
Right. And then I had this I want to share, which you retweeted. This is from Scott Johnson. Reminder, the SEC in November delayed Franklin and hashtag applications in full 24 BDs before their second deadline. The only rationale for such a move was to align comment periods for potential simultaneous approval. We have people like Mark Yusko who believe that BlackRock will get a head start. Are we going to see this simultaneous? Hey, we're going to see, whichever ones, because the SEC had that deadline of December 29th. If you want approval, you got to get your ducks in a row. And, you and Eric were on a tweeting spree with all the S1s and amendments that were filed. Are we still expecting to see, 7, 8, 9 simultaneous ETF approvals? Or do you think it's going to be maybe 1 or 2?
Yeah, so our expectation right now is it's been narrowed down to 11 different filings. So we think there's about 11 different ETF issuers that could see approval. What we were worried about is the SEC wants to see your authorized participant's name. They want to see a bunch of different things in these documents before they give you the approval, the head nod on the S1s or the prospectuses. We haven't seen all of these filers name their APs. But that probably isn't going to stop them from getting approval. So there's 2 processes before an ETF can list here, a spot Bitcoin ETF in this instance. You need the 19B4 approval and you need the sign off on the prospectuses or the S1s or offering documents or registration documents. There's a whole bunch of different names you can use for them, but it's really just we'll refer to as S1 or S3 in Grayscale's case. And basically, where on my end, almost all of these issuers, all 11, likely have AP agreements lined up and ready to go. And they will update their documents at some point later this week or early next week to include them. So we're still thinking that those 19B4 approvals will come early next week. So Monday through Wednesday is when I'm expecting them personally, because of those deadlines that Scott spoke about in that tweet. Where he basically said like the deadlines, that was my case. That's when we narrowed in on January 8th to January 10th, when they went super early, however many business days he said before the decision was actually due. So that's why we're looking at Jan 8 to Jan 10. That said, we're expecting approval under 19B4. They also need approval for those S1s. They basically need to go they need to go effective. And the SEC is what dictates that. So you need two things to happen. So it's possible you could see all 11 of these approved early next week, and then they don't only a handful of them are actually able to go effective because they've checked all the boxes that the SEC has required. But who knows? I do think we're going to see multiple launch next week, or at least get approved next week.
Awesome. And there has been a bidding war in fees, right? We'll get into that here in a little bit. But we had a news from the block come out that the NASDAQ is meeting with the SEC today to discuss spot Bitcoin ETFs. What is the significance of this, James? Is this just something that happens all the time with ETFs? Because, here in crypto land, we're like chomping at the bits. We have no idea. And then people are tweeting random stuff. And so it's important to have people like you to really put things into perspective. Is this something revolutionary, or is this, hey, this is just one of the final steps until it gets approved? And is this just another item off the checklist that points us to an approval?
Yeah, I mean, this is just part of the process, right? Like they say meeting, it's probably just a conference call. Honestly, most likely it's not actually a person meeting in most of these cases, just the SEC and these issuers, the exchanges, they're just finalizing those 19B4s and these S1s and just like getting to the nitty gritty details of this stuff. Like they wouldn't be spending this much time doing it if they weren't like trying to follow this, right? So one, I think it's impactful in the sense that it shows that things are still moving forward, but this has been happening weekly for many different, the SEC has probably been talking to someone about this almost every single day. So just because you're hearing about one meeting doesn't mean something one way or another.
Makes sense. James, there's been a lot of discussion. There's a new phrase everyone likes to throw around: seeding. This person's seeding this person's seeding that. We had this. So BlackRock was supposed to seed about 10 million today, but they have moved that date to January 5th. And then we had this tweet from Bitcoin Magazine. BlackRock is seeding their spot ETF with $10 million, Bitwise with 200 million, Hashtags 2.8 million, and Wisdom Tree 2.5 million. What does it mean, seeding an ETF? Does that mean they're buying the Bitcoin? Or from what I've read, it just means they have money in the bank account ready to go. How would you explain that to a novice?
Yeah, I mean, they could have tagged me in that because that's from a chart that I tweeted.
Oh, really?
Out. Honestly, that's a table that we put out. Yeah, that was probably a copy directly from one of my tweets. But that said, it doesn't really mean all that much, right? So you need a certain amount of money in order to launch these ETFs. They can't just launch without anything in them. So usually you have these APs or market makers, they'll loan money, or sometimes it'll be the issuers themselves that'll load these products with some money, and then they go live. But it also, there's another type of seeding that people like to talk about, which BlackRock has done a bunch. So yeah, they're going to start with 10 million, but they might have an institutional investor lined up for like 10 times that, if not more, that will come in on day one, because it used to be a big deal if you seeded with a lot of money, but for the most part, that doesn't show up in flows and things like that. So it's not as impressive. So what a lot of these issuers will do is they'll seed with a lower number and then actually pile a bunch of money in from somebody else on day one or day two. So I wouldn't read too much into this. The number that was surprising me the most was Bitwise's 200, but there's no guarantee it's actually going to seed with 200. And like you said, they moved the date. The dates don't mean anything until those go effective. I talked about the fact that the SEC needs to sign off on this and go effective on those dates. And until they do that, any of that information can change. They can change the fees. They can change any of the names that they've put in there for their APs. They can change the seeding capital. They can change anything in there until those go effective. So you look at any of those documents, there's always like red writing on there that basically say this is not finalized and subject to change and all that stuff. So they could change the date again. It might not necessarily be January 5th. It could change to, I don't know, January 8th or 9th or 10th.
Awesome. And then I do want to share this. You mentioned AP, so authorized participants. So we had this piece of news that everyone was making fun of. BlackRock names Jane Street, JP Morgan as authorized participants for its proposed Bitcoin ETF. And then we had this piece of news drop today. Goldman Sachs in talks to become a Bitcoin ETF authorized participant for BlackRock and Grayscale. What are your thoughts?
I can't hear you.
Okay. And so just to kind of review while we work on that. So again, BlackRock named JP Morgan as the authorized participant. And then we had Goldman Sachs in talks to become an authorized participant for BlackRock and Grayscale. What role does an authorized participant play? And are you surprised we saw someone like JP Morgan with Jamie Dimon being so bearish, even in a Senate hearing last week, saying, hey, if I was a government, I would shut crypto down. What are your thoughts on that? And can you explain exactly what role does an authorized participant play?
Yeah, so it's a little surprising just because of the Jamie Dimon comments, Robbie. Like that was ironic to see them there, but it's not surprising to see them listed as an AP on an ETF. They're somebody that they have they're a massive bank, they're a massive brokerage, they have a lot of assets, and they are APs and plenty of ETFs out there. So they have a desk, and they had the opportunity to do it and make money. And I'm assuming that they wouldn't have done this without getting his sign off and approval to do it. But yeah, it's not surprising that they're there. Now, what do? The APs are market makers, are typically big banks or brokerages or trading firms that actually facilitate the creation and redemption of ETF shares. So if you've been paying attention to any of this, like the reason that ETFs work so well is because you can always create or redeem shares to meet supply and demand, so that the price of the ETF is always in line with the underlying assets that it holds. So basically, if that gets out of whack, somebody will sell one and buy the other. It's an arbitrage opportunity. Now, the ability to do that, the actual ability on the back end to create new shares or destroy shares, is through the AP. So the AP is the one that facilitates that mechanism that makes ETFs work so well, that arbitrage mechanism of creation redemption.
Awesome. And then James, there was a lot of talk about in-kind versus cash creates, right? The SEC wanted cash creates. Can you break that down for the people who might not understand, and what kind of direct impact would it have on the purchasing or the buy or sell pressure on Bitcoin if it's in-kind versus if it's cash creates?
Yeah, so like this is like ETF nerd stuff, right? So we're fixated on this. The issuers would prefer it to be in kind, but for the end investor, for anyone looking at these things, like you're probably not going to be able to tell the difference between something operating as cash only or in kind. So theoretically, the way it would work in kind is you would hand over the Bitcoin, and in return you would get the shares. That's how the authorized participant would work, right? So in order to create new shares, they would gather up Bitcoin, hand that to the issuer. In return, the issuer would say, now you've given us enough Bitcoin, here's the shares to create new, or vice versa. They would hand over the shares and get Bitcoin in return. In this instance, it's cash. So they're going to hand over cash and get shares in return, or hand over shares and get cash, which means at the end of the day that the person actually facilitating the Bitcoin trading is the trust or the fund or the issuer. They have a trading desk that's going to be facilitating that action of acquiring or selling the Bitcoin. So theoretically, this will make it, you could see some differentiated performance based on how good these companies are at executing on Bitcoin trading. But under the in-kind model, it's outsourced basically to those APs and the market makers, the Virtus of the world, the Citadels, the Jane Street, you name it. So that's really the difference. But again, at the end of the day, like it's a couple extra steps that are required to do that creation redemption process. So the spreads might be a tiny bit wider for something that's cash create versus in-kind. But at the end of the day, it's still the same, because no matter what you do, when you create new shares of the ETF or you destroy them, you're either buying shares, in the case of creation, you're buying Bitcoin, or in the case of destroying shares or redeeming shares, you're selling Bitcoin. So no matter what, these are going to actually hold the underlying Bitcoin. It's just that the actual process for making that work isn't the way that most people think of an ETF. But there's literally like 350 to 400 different ETFs that currently operate on cash only. Like this is not some like brand new thing that's happening. It's happened before, and it's a known quantity.
Awesome. Thank you for that breakdown, man. By the way, guys, if you like guests like James on our show, make sure to hit the like button, and we will post his Twitter handle. You should definitely follow James. Your Twitter account is absolutely blown up. I remember the first time we brought you on, I think you're at like 20K. I'm looking at your Twitter right now. You're at 80,000 followers, which is well deserved, my friend. Any updates on ETF? You are our go-to guy, you and your colleague Eric. So we'll drop that in there to go follow James. Now, James, ETF gets approved, let's say on Friday, right? We hear rumors. All right, SEC comes out. What's the next step? When is the trading going to go live? I'm hearing, hey, since Grayscale already owns 600,000 Bitcoin, They'll probably be able to get first to market. What's the process like after the SEC says, okay, fine, you can go ahead and launch the product?
So this goes back to what I was talking about before with the 19B4s and the S1s, right? So a theory of mine was that if we got an early approval, we could see a huge gap between approvals and launch because they need to finalize everything, the S1s. But all these meetings, the things I've been covering, that everyone now has been covering. I mean, we have Fox covering this now. If you told me Fox was going to be covering this 6 months ago, I would have been like, you're crazy. But but for the most part, what it is it's finalizing those S1s, right? So you need the 19B4 approval and you need the S1 approval. And so until both of those things happen, these things cannot list. So under normal circumstances, you would say it could be a few days, right? So like, but there are people out there that think it's going to be multiple weeks between the 19B4 approval and the actual listing. I think it's going to be much shorter. Look, I don't think it's going to happen Friday. I don't think approvals are going to happen until early next week. That's my stance right now. But we could hear rumors that like, oh, the SEC has already told all these issuers, expect your approval orders next week and blah, blah, blah. And we'll go from there. But again, you need those S1s approved. So once you have the S1s approved, it could literally be the next day. So we could see those things filed and go effective on, I don't know, let's say that we get approval orders, which again, no guarantee we're getting approval orders next week, but that's our base case. You get approval orders on Tuesday. You could see after market close on Tuesday or Wednesday that these S1s, they basically go effective, which means they're approved by the SEC. They'll have all the finalized information. We'll know what the expense ratios officially are. Again, those expense ratios we've seen now are not official yet. It could be just jockeying before the race actually starts. But they'll go official, and then theoretically it could be within 24 hours that these things start trading.
Wow.
There are people out there who thinks it's going to be multi-weeks. I think it's going to be measured in days rather than weeks.
I'm no ETF expert, but I use Google, and so when I was looking at ETFs, I saw a number usually 90 days from when it gets approved to when it goes live. So in a matter of days, everyone talks about, hey, buy the rumor, sell the news, ETF, everyone's pricing it in, and then there's going to be this long gap between it actually goes live. That's when people are expecting a dump. But if you're sitting here telling me that, hey, it could be a matter of literally 24 hours. Who knows how the price is going to react? I do want to ask you about this, James. This is a tweet from Gabor Gerbax. In my view, people tend to overestimate the initial impact of U.S. Bitcoin ETF. And this is a line I want to focus on. I think maybe a few 100 million flows. And he says mostly recycled. And I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, all these people that have money in a futures ETF, what would be the reason to park your money there when you can have direct exposure to Bitcoin via spot ETF? And what are the numbers that you guys are kind of thinking? We know, what is it, 2-3 years ago when the futures ETF came out, what was it, like $1 billion in 1 or 2 days? I believe that was a number. What is the expectation for a spot ETF? Maybe in the first week and then the first month?
Yeah, so part of the thing is like everyone who's really wants exposure likely has it. That said, I'm kind of in Gabor's camp. I'd probably go higher than the numbers he's talking about. I don't think it's possible though. Like you could have somebody like BlackRock or Fidelity that have a bunch of clients with assets waiting in the wings to pile into here. So there's no guarantee that won't happen. Those records won't break. I think it'll likely be measured. The one thing he did say is he said mostly recycled, which is key because it goes back to what you were talking about with BITO, the futures ETFs. A lot of the assets in the Canadian ETFs are definitely from US-based investors, particularly some institutions. And then you also have a lot of money that might move and go into these, leave GBTC and go into other ETFs. So the net flows might not be as impressive. You also got to realize if we have 11 ETFs launched, it's not as clear to figure out exactly what's going on because with BITO, it's just one thing. And honestly, like trading begets more trading, and then everyone was talking about one ticker, and it drove up a lot of volume and interest. When you have 11 different names potentially launching, it's not going to have the same kind of frenzied swarm effect. That said, I wouldn't call it out of the question. I mean, if you look at Galaxy, they're predicting 14 billion in the first year. We think it's probably going to be less. Around, my guess is we could see 10 in net flows into this space based on what we're seeing from advisor demand and the fact that advisors have been saying they're not going to do anything until there's a spot Bitcoin ETF. That said, you have a lot of these wirehouses, those advisors just spoke about, like they're not just going to pile money into these things on day one, right? It's not going to be the same as BITO. Some of the smaller shops might, but a lot of these bigger shops that are managing tens of billions of client assets, they're going to take time to do their due diligence on each one of these ETFs to see which one is best, what are the pitfalls, potential pitfalls, things like that. And then they'll figure out which ones they're going to invest in and allow the people on their platforms to invest in them. So it might be more of a slower burn. So I think some of the initial hype and excitement around the initial launches might be overblown, but then again, some of the longer term impacts are likely being slightly underblown.
I just got this tweet from Bitcoin Magazine. It says Fidelity has just filed registration of securities for its spot Bitcoin ETF with the SEC. Is this something that you're new to seeing, or
When did they tweet this?
4 minutes ago?
Oh, that's just an 8A. Yeah, that's nothing. They can't do anything until they get those other approvals that I spoke about. So they can't do anything until they actually get those 19B4s. So yeah, that matters. Obviously, I guess there's some sort of step there. I would need to look into exactly what's said in the document, which I'm not going to do right now. But for the most part, you need to look for the 19B4 approval orders, and you need to look for the S1s to go live.
Awesome.
Those
James,
are the two things you should be focused on. Yeah.
you know, what great info for people who are experienced, for people who are new about Bitcoin. I do want to ask you though, before we let you go, and you've been very gracious with your time, so thank you. But the next narrative after Bitcoin is an Ethereum spot ETF. Now we know the SEC delayed the initial applications. What do you guys have probabilities on an ETH spot ETF going live?
We will in the next couple of weeks. We'll put something out eventually. We're focused on what's going on right now. That said, I can tell you there's final deadlines. So just like ARK and 21 shares, their final deadline is January 10th, which is what everyone's been focused on for what's going on right now. There are final deadlines for a couple applications, namely from ARK and VanEck in the May 23rd, May 24th time range. So it's possible. And I would say even more likely than not that we see one of those get approved in 2024 based on some actions from the SEC, but need to dive in a little bit more. The odds are nowhere near as strong as they are for how confident we are with what's going on with these Bitcoin ETFs, but we do think that it's a distinct possibility that we could see an ETH ETF trading in 2024 as well. That said, it's only Bitcoin and ETH right now. Anything else is pretty much off the table as far as I'm concerned for 2024.
Okay. Rob, you have any questions for James before we let him go?
No, man. I'm just over here digesting, man. That sounds good. Very bullish, man. Because the thing was, I woke up this morning, I saw I got a couple push notifications triggered if we get a 5% drop in Bitcoin, and my alarm was going off. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh no, like the ETF, what it was. So glad to see that.
I woke up to so many messages from people asking me like, is this change anything? And I couldn't get my hands on the full report. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. And I was like, but when I finally saw it, I was like, oh, come on, guys.
And go ahead, James, please.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, I was expecting to see something new. I was like, oh, maybe I missed something. And then I saw it and I was like, oh.
That is, and then I'm gonna shill your YouTube again or your Twitter again. That is why you need to follow my man James here, because you want information, you go direct to the source. Someone whose job is literally to analyze and talk about ETFs, and that is James Seyffart. We do have his Twitter handle pinned in the comment section of this chat. Please go follow him. Absolute goldmine of information. James, we thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure discussing ETFs with you, my friend. Any parting words before we let you go? I'm sure your phone's probably blown up 20 freaking times while you're on the show.
No, parting. I mean, obviously, we just hope that our call is correct, and we're literally down to the wire here. We'll find out in the next week or so. Yeah, I mean, the deadline is 1 week from today, so we'll find out, and I'm ready to eat a lot of crow if we were wrong. So,
are you gonna pick up any shares of BTC yourself?
It's questionable whether I'm allowed to. We'll figure it out. It hasn't been decided yet.
Listen, James, we can hire you and bring you here. Then you can buy all the Bitcoin ETFs you want, man. Let us know your price.
All right, man.
James, thank you so much again, brother. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to bringing you on again. Talk maybe some Ethereum ETFs.
All right, thanks again, guys.
Take care, brother.
Thank you.
If If you didn't get value out of that, something's wrong with you, man. I hope that answered all your ETF questions. I hope that quelled your concerns of an ETF getting rejected. Nothing has changed. If anything, it's gotten better. So what I would do is, this is what I'm going to do. Go back and watch that entire segment after the live show is over. A lot of good nuggets in there. And so big shout out to James and big shout out to our community as well. So if you enjoy these style type of guests, make sure to hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe.
Big shout out to the X community, formerly known as Twitter. We have over 600 people watching. We got over 900 people watching there on Twitter. So to all of you on Twitter land, X land, hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto. Also, a few new faces here. Say hello if you are new. I'll give you a shout out. We got Nicholas G, Chantel, CryptoCon, Daniels, JC, Rhino, Paramel, Reliable J, and Steve Libby. To all of you, hola! Welcome. Sin City Crypto.
You know, while the SEC is finally turning over a good leaf, the IRS is turning over a bad leaf. And this is bad, bro. New crypto tax reporting obligation took effect January 1st of this year. Listen to this, Robin. If you receive $10,000 or more in crypto, you now have to file a report with the IRS within 15 days. And if you don't, you are going to catch a felony charge.
Good Lord.
But here's the thing. In the report, you have to have the person's name, their addresses, social security numbers, EIN numbers if they're a business. What the hell, man?
Yeah,
This is bad.
You know who I feel bad for? The IRS agents. Like, good luck getting all that info from every transaction, because I feel like if you are getting audited and if you have some questionable activities, then they might dig in deeper. But I am no tax expert, so I'm not going to even try to pretend like I know what you should or could do. But hire a good tax attorney, and it is a new year, so within the next month or so, you're probably going to be sitting down to do taxes. I would recommend, if you have made money in crypto, the tax laws are extremely complicated. I would probably hire someone to help you out on that, because the last thing you want to do is get sued.
What kind of effect do you think this has? Do you think someone now, let's say it's a content creator, or let's say it's a business that, they were accepting crypto as payment. Now they see this rule. They're like, I don't want to deal with a headache. Give me cash, Zelle me money, whatever the case may be.
Well,
and now we're going backwards.
If it's over $10,000, right? And so
that's not a lot of money.
No,
in business. Right?
But if you're receiving, say, multiple $10,000 payments, hundreds of thousands, it might, you're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars range, millions of dollars of income coming in from crypto. I'm sure that you would probably figure out a structure to accommodate the tax regulation, right? Or at least the code. And first thing that pops up into my head is like, hey man, if I'm selling cars or buying a car with crypto, I think that's kind of popular. Ferrari now accepting crypto for payment, or at least Bitcoin. And so how many Ferraris are they selling with crypto? So I'm sure the process is they're going to have KYC anyways, right? So everything that you're saying there, you're buying a large purchase, usually you're collecting info anyways, right? So I think for a company standpoint, I think it's fine. I think where you get into muddy waters is the everyday trader that is like a big fish, somebody that is moving hundreds of thousands of dollars, trading, sending from one wallet to another. I think that would be something I would be concerned about. But for companies, I think it'll be fine.
Big news, guys. We have officially moved the markets since crypto. Bitcoin, $42,641. Guys, I think this number is going to rebound right back up to that 44K level once news picks up. And as Dan mentioned, hey, these algorithmic bots that trade, they pick up on keywords and headlines. Once new keywords and headlines come up, right? Once you get information by speaking to people like James, who was on our show, I think the price is going to rise back up. I think this dip was
What does the chat think about the price of Bitcoin and where it'll be by the end of the week? Put a 1 in the chat if you think Bitcoin will stay under 45,000 coming into Friday, or do you think that will cross back over, rebound above 45,000? Put a 2 in the chat. I want to know what the chat thinks as far as Bitcoin's price trajectory by Friday. And then, yeah.
Sweet. And I have this piece of news I want to share, Robin. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. It's from the cryptopolitan.com. Ordinals protocol sparks Bitcoin fork speculation amidst network debates. Bitcoin developer Jimmy Song has expressed skepticism towards the Ordinals protocol, comparing it to the run-of-the-mill altcoin scams. By leveraging the Bitcoin network and adopting the narrative of sound money and self-sovereignty associated with Bitcoin, Ordinals has managed to appear legitimate and credible. The discussions surrounding Ordinals and its potential implications for the Bitcoin network have led to speculation about a possible fork in 2024. Will it be 2020 fork year for Bitcoin?
Stop.
I hate you, Rocco. All jokes aside, though, the maxis are freaking out. Bitcoin transaction fees are skyrocketing. Good for the miners as they're making a lot of money. But ultimately, at the very end, in 2140 or whatever year it is, the Earth still exists, the block reward will be 0.
I can't with you.
The block
bro.
reward will be
The
0.
Earth won't exist
I'm
in
just saying, if the
2040.
Earth exists, just let me finish.
Bro, that's 16 years from now. Humanity's going to end?
2140. 2000.
2140. Oh.
So 100 and
okay.
years.
Yes. You know what? It's a lot more likely that in 100
I'm
years.
just saying,
the Earth
I'm just
destroys
saying,
itself.
block rewards will be 0. So how are miners going to be reciprocated from
Yes.
mining and validating
We're
network?
gonna-
It's going to be through transaction
We're
fees.
going to be mining in space, right? Because the Earth will no longer exist. We'll be on
Dude,
the
just
space.
California's
question,
gonna be
man. If you think the Earth will cease to exist, just kidding. What are your thoughts on this? Are the maxis just throwing a hissy fit? How can you sit here on one side and say it's the most decentralized, doesn't care who you are, and then when people decide to use it,
Why did the BIP get proposed anyways? I forget the exact
Taproot or
No, I'm saying
SegWit
I forget the actual number, but yeah, the Taproot upgrade, the BIP
that allowed inscriptions.
that allowed inscriptions.
I believe it was.
So there was a reason that was voted on. It was passed. It was because data stored on blockchain has value, and it provides more value to the network. It expands its use case and utility, right? Because now you can keep data on a transaction. And a lot of it is not, it's not so much, it wasn't for inscribing onto a Satoshi. It was more to also include data that moves along with the transaction. So you can say, hey, here is a transaction of Bitcoin I'm gonna send to somebody, and here's a little bit of here's an extra message or a causality that I can put with it. So as an example, I can send you Bitcoin for payment on let's say a car. Let's say we want to go back to the car analogy. You could literally put on there, hey, this is a transaction, or this transaction is a purchase, almost like a receipt, and I'm purchasing a car, and you can ascribe that onto the Satoshi or onto the transaction. And so there's value to it. Now, of course, when there's value, someone looks at the value and goes hog wild and decides to make NFTs and be like, hey, look what I did. So that is, in hindsight, kind of comical that the Bitcoin community, who is usually wants nothing to do with NFTs, wants nothing to do with use case and utility outside of store value, that we have NFTs. But you know what? Like I said, there's a use case for it. There's a reason that the Taproot was voted on, and it's a net positive. And we've seen, if anything, that these transactions, the fees that come from these transactions, support the miners. And all joking aside, at some point you're gonna have no more block rewards, and the miners who have spent millions of dollars acquiring these ASICs to secure the network are going to need a monetary return to keep their business model going. And so if you remove that, I mean, we're back to what? We're back to relying on block rewards. block rewards are going to get cut in half again in 3 months. And so if the block rewards are getting cut in half, I think it's a net positive getting money from transactions right now. Like not way later, 100 years from now. Let's change the business model now. And it's a positive for crypto anyways, right? The more money that the miners make, the more.
Do you think a fork would happen?
No.
And what would
no
be
chance.
the impact?
No chance. And you know what? Actually, there's no chance of a fork getting adopted. I'll put it that way. We've seen forks of Bitcoin.
But what if all the
There's
miners...
nothing stopping
What?
it.
Wait, no. The idea would be you
The
fork,
miners, yeah.
the miners leave.
Yeah. No.
Whoa, hold on, man. If a majority of the miners decide, hey, this is the new network,
I understand how it works.
but are they going to leave all those transaction fees behind?
No, they're not. Because the business model, the business model rewards the miners. So imagine if you had a business and you're like, man, we're making a lot of extra money from running this tire shop, but our parking lot's a mess. And now we're known for having tires and groceries. And you know what? People are coming here just for the tires and they're not even buying groceries anymore, man. But we're making so much more money. You know what? We want to just focus back on groceries and get rid of this whole tire. Like, no. As a business model, the people that vote or the people that decide, hey, what is best for the Bitcoin network, the people that vote on it are getting paid by the consensus model. It's either you get paid for just winning the block reward and getting your 3.25 coming up, right?
3.125.
3.125. So you can either just simply get your 3 Bitcoin and that's it. Or you can say, hey, we keep this ordinal thing going. I can get the 3 Bitcoin from the reward plus another 5 Bitcoin from the transaction fees. We make 8. Why would anybody ever vote against that? It's just illogical from a business standpoint. And remember, these are publicly traded companies that have board members, that have stockholders, that they need to, it's not just some degen sitting there in a basement saying, well, it goes against what Bitcoin stands for. Like, nah, man, these dudes need to make money. And you know what? They want to buy more ASICs. And if their profits have gone up through the transactions, they're not going to vote against it. There's no way.
Look at this, Rob. This is from blockchain.com. Look at the last blocks. Look at the total fees. This does not include the block reward, but the fees. 1.5 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin, 1.82 Bitcoin, 1.39 Bitcoin, 1.5. So they're making a lot of money with these transaction fees, and a lot of it comes from the inscriptions. Look at this block right here, 2.28 Bitcoin in transaction fees. And so ask yourself this question. If you are running a business, if you're a publicly traded company and you have a revenue model, and a third of that revenue, you have a decision. If I go here, third of my revenue is gone, wiped out, 33% off the books. Or do I stay here? I can really care less if it takes 7 hours for me to confirm a transaction. I'm getting my money.
2 Bitcoin awarded in transaction fees for the miners.
2.2.
In a scenario where Bitcoin is still $20,000, over $20,000 away from its all-time high. ETF goes, market rallies, ordinals rally, that reward is going to be 5x. Think about this. You're going to have a continuous mining of blocks where at least during this next bull run, during the height of the parabolic stage, you're going to have a scenario where every block mined, you're going to make more money on transaction fees than you are on the block rewards. And there's no way someone's going to scrap that business model. If anything, they're going to promote it. I wouldn't be surprised if Marathon and Riot all of a sudden start creating more buzz, start investing themselves and promoting NFTs and ordinals. It would be stupid not to. Why is there commercials for Bitcoin? Why did Hashdex come out with a commercials saying happy birthday Bitcoin, right? Because they know the more awareness that they bring to people, the more people that they're gonna buy from them. And the more that the miners can raise awareness of NFTs and say how good it is. I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden we go to one of these conventions for Bitcoin and the miners are there like, yo, this NFT thing, like, yo, this is our favorite NFT project. We're holding this. We invested in this NFT project. I mean, it makes sense, right? Why does Michael Saylor beat the Bitcoin drum so hard? Because he owns so much of it that he knows if he gets more adoption, the price goes up. He makes more money. It's the same cycle for a miner. And so to sit here and say they're gonna vote against that is it's asinine. And I don't mean that towards your perspective, because I know you don't really, you're just bringing up a hypothetical and what ifs, but I'm just saying that overall thesis just doesn't make sense. It goes against the business model. And the business model is that the miners are trying to make as much Bitcoin as possible. And they make a ton of Bitcoin off the transaction fee.
A ton.
And they're going to make so much more, bro.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be crazy.
Speaking of more, I want to give one more shout out to our channel sponsor, Cam's Blue Wire Technology. You want to learn how they can help your business scale and grow? Visit bluewiretech.com. Also, guys, we got our Hedera video dropping today. In approximately 10-15 minutes, our members will have early access. So if you're not a member, you want early access to all of our afternoon videos that are project specific and you want to support the channel, hit the Jordan button, or there is a link if you're on the, I don't know, if you're on the desktop or something. There's a link in the description. Click that, join the channel. If you get the lowest level tier, will get early access. Public gets access at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, go follow us on Twitter at Sin City Crypto 1. That is the social media platform we are most active on. With that being said, Rocco. Call the finger tornado. That's how we know that show's over. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It was an amazing show. Big thank you to special guests Dan and James from Bloomberg. Come back tomorrow, same place, same time. We love you guys.
See you guys.
Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy a dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming, hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.